My name is Adrian Howard, and I'm the owner of All Things Handy LLC, and I just want to share my story with you. I grew up with I had two sisters, two older sisters, and my mom. She worked, but I didn't understand that until maybe later in life why she was absent so much, and it was because she worked three jobs trying to raise three kids on her own. And because of that, I had so much freedom. I had way too much freedom. I had one sister that was well in the books and stuff. She's still to this day very conservative and just real smart. And I had another sister, we was like ace boom coons. And but me, somewhere along the line, like I remember we moved from one hood to a better hood, if that makes sense. We moved from the west side to the east side. And once I got out there, I started going to like better, it was kind of a better school. And I didn't realize until I went to that school, like where I was coming from, everybody pretty much, ain't nobody had nothing. So it was like, we didn't think about clothes and shoes and stuff like that. But man, once you get into a Lawrence school, middle school, some people dress a lot better, man. They had name brand stuff, and I'm realizing this. And, kids can be mean. Get the joning on you, you know what I mean? Before you know it, you in fights all the time. But I went in, I asked my mom, like, hey, I need Jordans. I need this, I need that. And my mom like, whoa, nah. And I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that she couldn't afford it. So what did I do? When she wasn't around, I found a way to go make my own money. And for that reason, I ended up hanging with the wrong people that was doing the wrong things to make their own money. And I started learning stuff that I ain't had no business learning. So I started becoming kind of like cocky too, even towards my mom. Like I started being disrespectful. I never, like, now as a grown man, I can take full responsibility for how I was acting. It wasn't I had a bad parent. I just had a parent that was hustling in the right way, trying to take care of me. But here I am out here in the streets finding any and everything to get into. And after a while, my mom just couldn't handle it. One day I had been missing for I want to say I was missing for like a little over a month. And I came, my mom, she had texted me, and I came home, and she was like, sit down. It was the weirdest feeling ever. She was like, sit down. I was 14 years old. I came in, I sat down, and she was like, she slid a piece of paper to me, and she said, sign this. I looked at the paper. The paper was life insurance. I signed it. And then after I signed it, she said, now I can make sure that you're okay when it comes time to bury you. And she told me, get out. Tough love. I was upset. I was confused, but I listened to her and I left. And from there, that's when life just took a downward spiral. Because you think you got friends and you can trust people. I'm hanging with older people. I'm jumping from couch to couch. Sometimes it's from friend's house to friend house to park bench when ain't nobody. Even had I remember a couple days under some apartment steps. And I remember that was nice because it was like, man, what am I doing? But yet I still kept putting myself in these positions. Long story short, I started getting in more and more trouble. I had my juvenile runs, and then my senior year, should have been my senior year, I made a mistake that cost me a nice portion of my life. I went, while everybody else was graduating, I was 10 years in prison. I had a 10-year sentence. I turned fresh 18 in prison. I remember hearing people who had a Bible, and I had one friend there, man. His name was Jeremy. We went to school together. We was real close. He'll be reading the Bible. I come up to him and I'm like, man, why are you wasting your time with that? This Harry Potter story. He gets so mad at me, man. He like, nah, this is the way right here. Like, this is how you get out of here. And I remember I would listen to him, and I would hear them, but I didn't want to hear it because I saw so many people just switch up in there. They'll read and know the Bible back and forth, but still do everything I do. So I guess I consider myself an atheist after that. I remember when I got out, and only did 3 of those years. And when I got out, it was the scariest feeling ever. It was scary because I had no idea what I was about to do. I spent all that time and still didn't figure out what I was going to do in there. I got out and I was like, man, everybody looking at me like I'm just going to keep going back and forth. But I knew I wasn't going to keep going to prison. But yet in the same sense, I went and I got in way worse stuff than what I was doing before. I went and got right back in the streets. And nothing was making me happy though. Real quick, as soon as I got back out, I had got a car real quick, a old school classic car. I got it painted real nice. I got my money together, and everything seemed like, from outward appearance, it was going good. But deep down, it was like, man, I was miserable. I remember this one time, I went to me and my friends, we went to Kilroy's in Broad Ripple. And we sat in this window. I got this picture. And we sat in this window and we was drinking. And I know I should have been drunk. For a fact, I know. And I remember one of my buddies came and he put his arm around me. And I remember I looked up at him and it startled me. Literally scared me. And all my friends that was with me, like, they looked dead. Not like zombies or nothing like that, but it just looked like soulless. Like, it scared me so bad that I got up and I left Kilroy's. I didn't say nothing to nobody. I just left. And they was calling me on my phone, and they was kind of laughing at me. They was like, man, you tripping. I'm like, man, I just was trying to figure out what was going on with me. I later figured out this was conviction. This was the start of conviction. That whole week just felt weird to me. Nothing, the drinking wasn't making it better. I remember I tried to smoke my problems away, and literally I was smoking. I'm like, man, I gotta smoke some more because I'm still tripping. Like, I'm still thinking about this stuff. But the more I did what I was doing, it was just pounding in my head like, Adrian, what are you doing? I remember I tried to sleep it off. I couldn't sleep it off. I got up in the middle of the night and I'm just literally walking back and forth, like pounding myself, like, what are you doing? Like, it's like I could hear God saying, like, you ain't gonna go no much farther. Like, you gotta get it together. Like, this is pounding in my head. And I remember it came to the next weekend, and I was riding in my car, and I was riding in silence. I was riding in silence, and my thoughts was so loud. And I remember I was just like, nothing is satisfying me anymore. None of this I was miserable. And I always thought people that think like this was weak-minded. But yet here I am in my car and I'm thinking, I don't want to be here no more. I'm about to end this right now. And I remember I pulled in front of the one person in my family that always looked out for me. I stayed with her for a little while. My cousin, she was saved, Holy Ghost filled. And I remember I pulled up in front of her house that night. It was about 12 at night. I pulled in front of her house and I sat in my car and I was just like, she just gonna have to find me out here. Like, I don't want to be here no more. And it dawned to this day, this had to be God because of the hour. It's Saturday, it's like 12 midnight, and I saw a light on in her house, and I was like, she shouldn't even be up. I know she got church in the morning. But I'm just sitting in my car and I'm crying, and I'm like, all right, let me fix myself. I'm gonna go talk to her. I'm gonna talk to her one more time. So I got out of my car, I cleaned myself up, and I walked up to the door, and I could see through the window she was sitting there at the table. And then my uncle, who's a deacon at the church, he lived next door. This makes no sense to this day why he was even over there, but he was sitting at the table too. I came in and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to act like my normal chipper self. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they was like, waiting on you. And it hit me like, wait, waiting on me. Long. I tried to play it off, and they're like, sit down. So we get to talking. We just randomly talking, and somehow we got on the conversation of God. I never told him what was going on with me. I never told him how I was really feeling, but I imagine I was wearing it, even though I was trying to mask it. Out of everything we talked about that night, the one thing that they got me with was what you got to lose. And I was telling them, like, man, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh God, I'm about to lose my life out here. And I remember they was like, well, why don't you just come to church and just try? And I'm like, I don't believe in this speaking in tongues. I don't believe in this Holy Ghost. Like, it was just like, but there's like, but what you got to lose? And I'm like, I don't got nothing to lose. So long story short, I agreed to come to church the next day. I was like, I come. Fine. It's like, you promise? Promise, I'll be there. So I left. It's probably like 1:30 in the morning. We talked to about 1:30 in the morning. I left, and while I was walking back to my car, it just felt like a ton of bricks just sitting on my shoulders. Literally, it just felt, man, I sat back in my car. And I remember this feeling. This always goes through my mind. I remember the feeling I had sitting in that car, and I was crying, and I was like, God, I don't know if you fake. I don't know if you real. I don't know if this Holy Ghost is real, but I give it all up now. I start to give it up all up now. You got to show me that this is real, or I'm going to end it tomorrow. Like I was setting my date. I'm going to end it tomorrow if I don't see that this is real. I threw my dope out the window. I started calling my friends, and they was laughing at me again. Some of them thought I was tripping. I even called my drug connect, and he thought I was like on some police stuff. And I called everybody, and the only person who actually was listening to me she was my girlfriend then. She's my wife now. But I told her, I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. She was like, all right, well, I'm coming too. When we going? So long story short, the next morning, I barely slept that night. I remember getting dressed. It felt the same way it felt when I was going to court before I got sentenced. I was getting dressed, I'm putting myself together, and I'm just like, man, it felt like I was dressing for my own funeral. It was just like, man, all I could think about was like, I ain't going past this day if you don't show me this. So I went to church, and I remember the same church I was at. This was my family church growing up. And I remember like this place, I always felt like everybody was holy rollers, and like I despised it. But it really was just the bad spirit that I had in me that I thought towards these people. And I remember I came in, I sat in the very back, and it just felt like a cloud was over me. And I couldn't see nobody else there that day. It was just like me and the pastor. I hear him and he preaching, and he even talked about it. He was like, man, the devil will play tricks on your mind to have you thinking that you want to commit suicide. And I'm like, man, he talking about everything he's saying. I'm like, man, he talking about me. And I just remember, like I used to think the services was so long and boring, but this was like short and sweet. It was like talking to me. And I remember like when the altar call came, I shot up out my seat, and I'm like pacing past people that I ain't seen since I was a kid, like, and I'm just like, this is it, like, this is it. They looking at me like, what? I'm determined to find out if this is a real thing. And man, when I extended my hands and I got to just tear it took no time to literally feel. It felt like layers falling off of me and just fire running through me. It took no time. In less than 5 minutes, I'm speaking in a language. I'm speaking to the point where it's like it scared me because it was like, this is really, I'm my eyes open and I'm just trying to talk normal. I can't talk normal. Like it was, but it was a joy at the same time. It scared me, and it was a joy at the. It's hard to explain what I felt, but it was, man, it was. I knew right then and there, like it didn't matter what, I looked into like a bunch of different religions and stuff while I was in prison. I looked into all of that, but nothing got me like this. This sunk in me heavy. Like I felt it instantly. The spirit flowing through my body like fire. And from that day forward, I hit the ground running. The things that I thought was gonna be a challenge to me wasn't a challenge to me. The things that come as a challenge afterwards, for me, it wasn't me thinking I can't give up drinking, I can't give up smoking. That stuff left instantly because I didn't need that. I didn't need that to feel good. I was feeling good already. It was the loved ones, the people who you think your ride or die gonna accept you. You tell them you got the Holy Ghost. They ain't trying to hear that. But, later in life, I realized, like, they wouldn't understand because they ain't experienced it. So I had to show them. And, long story short, the same friends that I looked up at that looked dead to me, unfortunately, my whole crew of friends that I grew up real tight with, they all in the grave right now. I lost all my friends. I feel like God gave me a revelation that day. Like, it would have been me first. It definitely would have been me first if I had not listened to his calling when he called me out. And I wish my friends would have listened to me too. But unfortunately, things happen. But as for me and my house, we gonna serve the Lord.